There comes a moment in your life when you look in the mirror and whisper to yourself, I can't keep living like this. A moment when the anger, the frustration, the outbursts over small, meaningless things begin to feel heavier than the problems themselves. You start to realize it's not the world that's breaking you. It's the little storms inside you that keep stealing your peace. It's the tiny triggers that grow into explosions, the small words that turn into wars, the minor inconveniences that become massive emotional earthquakes. And deep down, you know you're tired, tired of reacting, tired of losing control, tired of letting little things ruin big days, because anger at stupid things doesn't just cost you moments, it costs you relationships, opportunities, health, clarity, and the version of yourself you're trying so hard to become. And the truth is, you deserve better than a life ruled by quick tempers and short fuses. You deserve a calm spirit. You deserve a steady mind. You deserve a heart that doesn't collapse every time something doesn't go your way. And the good news, that strength, that discipline, that unshakable peace, it's already in you. You don't need a new life to become stronger. You don't need perfect circumstances to stay calm. All you need is a decision to stop giving your power to small things, a decision to rise above the nonsense, a decision to protect your peace like your life depends on it, because it does. So today we're going deep. Today, we're talking about how to stop getting angry at the little things, how to take control back, how to turn that fire into focus, and how to walk through life with a calm so powerful it becomes your superpower. Now listen closely. Here's what you need to understand. Let me break this down for you. This is where everything changes. Pay attention to this part. There is a moment right before you react, right before you snap, right before your emotions start running the show. And that moment is the most powerful space you will ever own in your entire life. It's small, almost invisible, but it's where the entire direction of your day, your relationships, and your peace is decided. That pause, that breath, that heartbeat of silence before you speak or move or lash out, that is your throne. That is where your strength sits, waiting for you to claim it. But most people never notice it. They rush past it, running straight into anger, straight into regret, straight into the fire, because they think reacting fast means being strong. But reacting fast is easy. Anybody can explode. Anybody can shout, slam doors, lose control. That's not strength. That's surrender. Real strength is noticing the storm rising inside of you and choosing not to let it spill out onto the people around you. Real strength is stepping back when everything inside you wants to jump forward. And maybe no one taught you this. Maybe you grew up in an environment where anger was the first language spoken in the household. Maybe you've spent years believing that if you don't react instantly, you're letting people walk all over you. Maybe you learned to defend yourself before you even learned how to understand yourself. So now, as an adult, that instinct to strike, to tighten your chest, to raise your voice, to attack before you're attacked, it shows up even when nobody is hurting you. It shows up over meaningless things. A slow driver, a loud neighbor, a misplaced word, a minor inconvenience. And before you know it, something small becomes something explosive because as you never learned how powerful a single second of silence can be. That pause is not weakness. That pause is wisdom. That pause is emotional maturity. When you pause, you're not avoiding the problem. You're positioning yourself to respond with clarity instead of chaos. You are choosing intention over impulse. You are choosing to act, not react. And that's the difference between someone who is controlled by life and someone who controls their life. Anger tries to trick you into believing that it needs to be satisfied right now. It pushes you to speak before thinking, to act before understanding, to move before observing. But when you begin to master that tiny gap between feeling and reacting, life slows down. You begin to see things for what they truly are. You begin to recognize how many situations don't deserve your energy. You begin to understand that most anger isn't about the moment. It's about accumulated frustrations that have gone unexpressed. Think about how many times you've reacted instantly and regretted it minutes later. Think about how many arguments could have been avoided if you paused long enough to realize the other person wasn't attacking you. They were just having a bad day. Think about how many times your anger made a small problem feel like a life-changing catastrophe. When you don't pause, you let your emotions lead you into battles you don't need to fight. You let temporary feelings make permanent damage. You let yourself lose control over something that never even mattered. And deep inside, you know it. You can feel the regret every time the anger fades and your clarity returns. That little voice inside you whispers, you didn't have to react like that. You could have handled that differently. But by then, the moment is already gone. That's why mastering the pause is not optional. It's essential. It's the difference between living a life filled with constant emotional fires and living a life where you decide when to speak, how to respond, and what deserves your attention. Every time you pause, you're training your mind to stay steady. You're strengthening the muscle of self-control. You're rewiring your reactions. You're teaching yourself that peace is more valuable than being right. And the beautiful thing is, the more you practice that pause, the more natural it becomes. Your emotions start calming quicker. Your patience stretches further. Your heart doesn't jump into battle mode every time something goes wrong. You begin acting like someone who owns their energy, not someone who gives it away to every small irritation. That pause also gives you space to check in with yourself, to ask, is this worth my peace? Is this worth my energy? Is this worth the version of myself I'm trying to become? Most of the time, the answer will be no. Most of the time, you'll realize the trigger isn't as big as your reaction wants to make it. Most of the time, you'll feel the anger rise and recognize that you don't have to go with it. You don't have to follow it. You don't have to let it pull you out of character. That single moment is where your power lies. And once you learn to hold it, everything begins to change. There comes a point in your life when you have to take a long, honest look at the things that keep stealing your peace and ask yourself why you keep letting them. Because the truth is this, most of the things that make you angry aren't big, life-changing events. They're small, insignificant, things that won't matter tomorrow, next week, or even an hour from now. But in the moment, you let them take over your entire mood. You let them dictate your attitude, your energy, your reactions. You give them power they never deserved. And the more you react to small things, the more you train your mind to believe that every inconvenience is a threat, every delay is disrespect, every mistake is an attack. Suddenly you're living in a world where everything sets you off because you've conditioned yourself to explode at the slightest disruption. Maybe it's someone who chews too loudly. Maybe it's a coworker who talks too much. Maybe it's a stranger cutting you off in traffic. Maybe it's your phone freezing or someone taking longer than you want. Whatever it is, you take a tiny moment, something that should barely ripple your emotions, and you turn it into a storm inside your chest. You make it personal. You make it bigger than it is. And you don't realize that you're actually hurting yourself far more than the situation ever could. Because every time you hand your peace to something small, you are silently telling yourself that you are fragile, that you are easily controlled, that you cannot handle discomfort. But you're stronger than that. You're meant to be bigger than the little things. You're meant to rise above the noise of irritation, not drown in it. You're meant to walk with the kind of internal stability that isn't shaken by every minor inconvenience life throws at you. Because life will throw inconveniences. It's guaranteed. Things will go wrong. People will annoy you. Delays will happen. Plans will fall apart. The world is not designed to revolve around your comfort, and that's okay. What matters is whether you allow those moments to define your entire emotional state. Imagine how much peace you would have if you stopped giving small things big power. Imagine how much calmer, more focused, more grounded your life would feel if you didn't let the tiny frustrations pile up and rule you. When you understand that not every moment deserves a reaction, you begin to reclaim your sanity. You begin to see the difference between problems worth fighting and problems worth ignoring. And you'll be shocked at how many fall into the second category. Most anger comes from pride, the feeling that everything should go your way, that people should act exactly the way you want, that the world should follow your script. But life isn't here to cater to your expectations. People won't always behave the way you prefer. Circumstances won't always work in your favor. And when you release the illusion that you deserve a perfect environment, you release the anger that comes from every imperfection. Letting small things go is not about lowering your standards. It's about protecting your energy. It's understanding that your peace is worth more than your frustration. It's choosing not to let annoyances steal your attention, your time, or your emotional strength. It's making the conscious decision to not be dragged into every little battle that life presents. You don't need to fight every inconvenience. You don't need to correct every small mistake. You don't need to respond to every irritation. Some things are simply not worth the weight you give them. And the more you practice letting go, the lighter you feel. You stop internalizing things that have nothing to do with you. You stop assuming negative intentions in meaningless moments. You stop turning small bumps into massive mountains. You begin to keep your power instead of handing it out to every situation that doesn't go smoothly. That's what emotional maturity looks like. Not suppressing your feelings, but choosing which ones deserve your energy. Not reacting to everything, but responding only when necessary. You start seeing life differently. You start noticing how much calmer you feel when you don't allow nonsense to rule your emotions. You begin to understand that peace doesn't come from having a perfect day, but from having the strength to not let imperfect moments destroy you. Because the moment you stop letting small things control you, you become unstoppable. You become unshakable. You become someone who walks through chaos without becoming chaotic. You become someone who chooses peace, even when life gives you every reason to choose anger. Your peace is the most valuable thing you have, even if you don't realize it yet. It's worth more than money, more than comfort, more than the opinions of people who don't understand you. Peace is the foundation of your strength, the anchor of your clarity, the guardrail that keeps you from falling into the same emotional traps over and over again. And the moment you start treating your peace like it's priceless, something inside you changes. You stop giving people free access to upset you. You stop allowing situations to drag you into chaos. You stop letting every small irritation steal hours of your life. You begin to understand that your peace isn't something you stumble into by accident. It's something you protect by choice. Most people don't guard their peace because they don't recognize how much it's worth until they lose it. They don't see how draining constant anger is until their body feels heavy every morning. They don't understand how much energy irritation steals until they realize how tired they are all the time. They don't see how much noise they carry inside because they've gotten used to living with emotional clutter. But once you get a taste of real peace, once you feel the quiet strength of a calm mind, you'll never want to go back to the version of yourself that reacted to everything. Peace is your currency because it determines the quality of everything you do. You think better when you're calm. You speak wiser when you're centered. You make better decisions when your emotions aren't driving the car. And you treat people with more grace when you're not fighting battles inside your own head. When you protect your peace, you're not only improving your own life, you're improving the way you show up for others. You're improving the way you handle challenges. You're improving the future version of yourself that you're trying so hard to become. And when you start valuing your peace, you begin to see how often you're giving it away for free. You've been handing it to people who don't deserve that kind of power over you. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and suddenly they own your whole mood. Someone sends a rude text, and now they control your thoughts for the next 2 hours. Someone's negativity spills into your day, and instead of brushing it off, you let it stain you. You give away your peace like it's cheap, like it's replaceable, like it's something you can get back anytime you want. But peace doesn't return easily once you've given it away. You have to rebuild it. You have to fight for it. You have to decide every day that nothing and no one will pull you out of alignment. Protecting your peace doesn't mean avoiding life. It doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. It doesn't mean you ignore your responsibilities or your emotions. It means you choose not to engage in things that drain you for no reason. You choose not to let small annoyances plant seeds of frustration in your mind. You choose not to carry other people's problems on your back. You choose to step away from negativity instead of letting it swallow you. Protecting your peace is maturity. Protecting your peace is strength. Protecting your peace is realizing that your emotional energy is limited, and not every situation deserves a piece of it. You begin telling yourself the truth that not every battle is worth fighting. Not every comment is worth responding to. Not every disagreement needs your full emotional investment. You start filtering your reactions, asking yourself, is this worth disturbing my inner world? Most of the time, the answer is no. And the more you practice saying no, the more you realize how powerful you become. You feel lighter. You feel clearer. You feel more in control. You start waking up with more strength and going to sleep with less regret. You stop apologizing for snapping because you don't snap as easily anymore. You start living with a sense of inner stability that other people can feel the moment they're around you. And something else happens. People begin to treat you differently. They start respecting your boundaries. They sense your calm. They notice that you don't entertain chaos, and they adjust their behavior accordingly. When you carry peace, you inspire peace. When you carry chaos, you attract chaos. And the moment you decide that your peace is worth protecting, you step into a version of yourself that no irritation, no negativity, and no unnecessary anger can easily reach. So much of the anger you carry doesn't really come from the moments that trigger it. It comes from the pain you never healed, the disappointments you never spoke about, the memories you buried but never truly dealt with. Anger is often the mask your wounds wear when they're tired of being ignored. It's the voice of the inner hurt that wasn't given space to speak in a healthy way. And that's why you sometimes find yourself exploding over things that don't even make sense. You're not really angry at the slow internet, or the misplaced item, or the comment someone made in passing. You're reacting to layers of emotional weight that have been building inside you for years, waiting for any excuse to overflow. When you understand that anger is rarely about the moment, everything starts to make sense. You begin to see the pattern in your reactions. You start noticing how your anger rises faster when you're tired, when you're overwhelmed, when you feel unheard, or when you're carrying the pressure of being strong for too long. You start realizing that your reactions are not random. They are signals. Signals that something deeper within you needs attention. Signals that your heart is tired. Signals that your mind is overloaded. Signals that your soul is asking for healing, not more noise. And because most people don't understand this truth, they spend their lives fighting the wrong battle. They try to control their anger without ever addressing the pain that fuels it. They try to silence the explosion without calming the storm inside. They try to fix their reactions without fixing the wounds that cause them. But anger is just a symptom. It's not the root. And unless you're willing to go deeper, unless you're willing to ask yourself, why does this bother me so much? You'll keep reacting to things that don't deserve the weight of your fury. Sometimes your anger comes from being disrespected in the past. Sometimes it comes from growing up in chaos, where raising your voice felt like the only way to survive. Sometimes it comes from abandonment, disappointment, betrayal, or years of pretending everything was okay when it wasn't. Sometimes it comes from feeling like no one listens, so every little irritation feels like a reminder of that loneliness. And sometimes it's simply the exhaustion of carrying too much for too long. But here's the truth: you deserve healing. You deserve to stop carrying pain that was never yours to hold. You deserve to be free from the emotional weight that keeps turning small moments into overwhelming battles. When you start facing your inner wounds, anger loses its grip on you. It becomes quieter, softer, less controlling. You begin to understand yourself instead of fighting yourself. You begin to give your emotions room to breathe instead of suppressing them until they explode. Healing doesn't mean you'll never feel anger again. Anger is a natural emotion, but healing gives you the ability to control it instead of letting it control you. It gives you the ability to feel the rise of irritation and understand what's beneath it. It gives you the strength to respond with clarity instead of reacting from hurt. Healing makes you more patient, more compassionate, more grounded because you're no longer battling invisible wounds while trying to handle real life stress. And the moment you become aware of the deeper pain behind your anger, you gain the power to change everything. You start catching yourself before reacting. You start recognizing when your emotional cup is too full and you need rest, not confrontation. You start giving yourself grace instead of guilt. You start choosing curiosity over conflict, asking yourself, what am I really feeling right now? What is this moment trying to teach me? What part of me needs attention? You learn to breathe through frustration instead of exploding through it. You learn to speak your truth calmly instead of yelling it from a place of hurt. You learn to express your emotions before they pile up into resentment. And slowly, the triggers that once controlled you lose their power. The fire that once burned uncontrollably becomes a flame you're able to manage. The anger that once overwhelmed you becomes an emotion you can understand, observe, and release. You stop being a prisoner to your past. You stop being controlled by unhealed wounds. You stop reacting blindly and start responding with intention. And in that transformation, you become stronger, kinder, wiser, and finally free. Every time you choose not to react, every time you take a breath instead of raising your voice, every time you step back instead of stepping into conflict, you are training a new version of yourself. A calmer version, a stronger version, a wiser version. Change doesn't happen in one big moment. It happens in the tiny choices you make every single day. And the truth is, learning to control your anger is not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming intentional. It's about recognizing that you have more power over yourself than you once believed. It's about understanding that you can't control what life throws at you, but you can absolutely control the way you respond. The people who master their emotions aren't the ones who never feel anger. They're the ones who feel it, acknowledge it, and choose not to let it drive the car. They're the ones who understand that reacting instantly is the fastest path to regret. They're the ones who realize that silence can be stronger than shouting, that patience can be louder than aggression, and that walking away can be braver than fighting back. Emotional control is not weakness, it's emotional intelligence. It's strength sharpened by discipline. It's wisdom earned through self-awareness. But controlling your anger isn't something you achieve once and never struggle with again. It's a practice, a muscle, something you build slowly, consistently. Every moment when you resist the urge to snap, every moment when you refuse to let someone else's behavior dictate your mood, every moment you protect your peace instead of defending your pride, you're strengthening that muscle. And the more you strengthen it, the more natural it becomes. The moments that once triggered you stop affecting you the same way. Situations that once made your heart race start feeling manageable. You begin to rise above the noise that once consumed you. You also start realizing that most of the things you used to get angry about aren't worth the burden they placed on your heart. You begin to recognize how draining it is to carry anger around. You start feeling the difference between days when you're calm and days when you let irritation control you. You see how much lighter life feels when you don't waste your energy on things that don't serve you. And that awareness becomes motivation. Motivation to keep doing better, to keep choosing peace, to keep choosing your future self over your temporary emotions. It's not about suppressing what you feel. Suppression leads to explosions. It's about acknowledging the emotion and then choosing the most powerful response, self-control. It's about saying to yourself, I don't have to give this moment the power to ruin my day. I don't have to let this irritation pull me out of character. I don't have to react just because I feel something intense. That is the difference between emotional maturity and emotional impulsiveness. One builds your life, the other destroys it. When you start practicing emotional control, it impacts every part of your life. Your relationships become healthier because you speak with clarity instead of aggression. Your work becomes easier because you handle stress without falling apart. Your self-respect grows because you see yourself becoming someone who doesn't lose control easily. You start trusting yourself more. You start liking yourself more. And the people around you start noticing the change. They feel your calm. They respond to your steadiness. They see the way you carry yourself differently. Emotional control isn't just something you feel, it becomes something you radiate. And as you grow, you realize something powerful. The version of you that reacts to everything is not the real you. It's the untrained you. It's the wounded you. It's the exhausted you. The real you is the one who chooses patience over panic, peace over pressure, reflection over reaction. The real you is the version that rises higher than the moment, the version that sees beyond the irritation, the version that knows temporary emotions should never destroy permanent relationships or long-term goals. Every time you choose to stay calm, you're investing in your future. You're protecting your mental health. You're preserving your energy. You're building a life that isn't controlled by chaos. And little by little, step by step, choice by choice, you become the kind of person whose peace cannot be easily stolen, whose emotions cannot be easily manipulated, whose strength cannot be easily shaken.